Hi, everyone. Welcome back to The Whole Truth. I'm Gil Arbel, your attorney at law, and I wanted to discuss the Bindover brief a little bit more, the defense's Bindover brief. I want to address some misconceptions because there are some misconceptions and they're coming from our side. Um, and I think that, we have to stay credible. We're on the side of truth, which means that we're against the cockroach, but that means we have to be consistent. And when our side says something incorrect, let's call it out. And so the biggest thing that I've been seeing a lot of is that the defense here is admitting guilt. They're admitting guilt about the shooting of by Tyler Robinson of Charlie Kirk, but they're trying to counter or they're trying to get rid of the death penalty. And it's not exactly the case. What they're doing here is they're saying, okay, assuming everything that the prosecution presented is true, and accepting all of the inferences that are favorable to the prosecution, which is what the judge is supposed to do at this stage. Even then, you shouldn't make the inference that, the aggravating circumstances are present. So in a way, they're not admitting guilt, but they are admitting, they're choosing not to attack the evidence of guilt. So it doesn't mean that they're admitting it. That would be, malpractice, really. But they are saying that, and they're right to do this strategically. They're saying the evidence that is presented on his guilt is very strong. They're not saying this, but their strategy is implying this, that they know it's very strong. There's no chance that the judge is gonna not bind it over for trial. And so, given that, they're attacking what they can, which is what they think is the aggravating circumstances, the aggravating circumstance, along with the two or three of the lesser offenses and the sentencing enhancement, as well as kind of just constitutionally, they're bringing up some basic constitutional arguments to preserve on appeal regarding the use of reliable hearsay and so forth. So it's not quite accurate to say that the defense is admitting that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie, and as much as our side would like that to be the case, because we all pretty much agree that Tyler Robinson did it, it's not exactly accurate. And let's hold ourselves to high standards, even though the other side doesn't. Let's keep ourselves to high standards. So the defense is not admitting guilt, but they are implying that the evidence is so strong on guilt that it's not worth attacking, at least at this stage. They're going where they can. And I was on Paramount Tactical yesterday for a short time. Gary had a guest host, Jared Continue Freedom. I'm sure all of you are already following him, but if not, please do. And we talked about the Bindover brief a little bit. I had to leave, but I wanted to continue the conversation going. I know that Artie is going live in like 40 minutes, or maybe 50 minutes. So I'm sure I'll be done by then. But I just wanted to continue with the Bindover brief and answer anyone's questions. And again, let's not exaggerate this. The defense is not admitting guilt. They are implying that the evidence is so strong. Now, what they're not doing is anything that the conspiracy theorists are. They're not pursuing anything that the conspiracy theorists are. They're not attacking the authenticity of the evidence of the surveillance footage, for example. They are not objecting to that on authenticity grounds. And the reason is, and I think I saw a post by Viva Fry alluding to this, is that lawyers are not allowed to intentionally lie to courts or juries. They are supposed to be zealous advocates on we're supposed to be zealous advocates on behalf of our clients, but we are not supposed to lie to court or mislead the public intentionally or a jury. And so if they have no reason, now they can, counter the prosecution's case by saying that there's gaps in there's problems, they're not reaching their burden of proof. That's all fair and game. And that's what they're supposed to do. But they're not allowed to lie. And if they have no reason to think that the surveillance footage was tampered with, if they have no evidence or basis to say that the surveillance footage is fabricated, they're not allowed to just lie and say that there is. That's unethical. It's against the rules of ethics, promulgated by the American Bar Association and each state's bar association. So that's why they're not doing it. There is no evidence to say that the surveillance footage was tampered with. And I'm sure that if they had that, they're in contact with their client, Tyler Robinson. And we can assume that if Tyler Robinson would tell them, that's not me on the surveillance. It's not me. And if there was some corroboration to that, you can be sure that the defense, if they're worth their salt, is that how the expression is, would attack the authenticity of the surveillance footage. But they're not doing that because they think it's authentic. They could also bring in expert. I mean, at a preliminary hearing stage, it might be a little bit of a tall order for the defense to bring in experts on certain details that they might bring in at trial, but like videographer experts that would be able to, point out flaws or fabrications in the surveillance. But they can't just argue that it's fabricated based on nothing. And my guess is they're not going to go that route, because if they hire a defense expert and that defense expert honestly concludes that there is no fabrication, well, they have to disclose that to the prosecution, and they just are helping their case, the prosecution's case, and hurting their own client while, racking up $10,000-$15,000 in expert testimony costs. So that's why they're not doing it. This I've been saying from the get-go, from what I saw at the preliminary hearing, Tyler Robinson is being represented by a good defense team. And, whether or not we like or agree with Tyler Robinson, our system is built on fairness to defendants. And he should be given a good defense team, because we want the prosecution to be held to a high standard. We want them to meet that burden. We don't want the candy tards to say, oh, this was a kangaroo trial, he was railroaded, so forth. We want it to be as fair as possible, so that when justice is done, we can put it to rest. So that being said, I just wanted to address that. Now I'm going to take a look at some of my commenters and say hi to everybody. And then we can, again, this is going to be kind of a short live. I like to go live when I have a chance. I got a break from work. Hi, X-Samurai, Jujubee. Hi, Angie. Hi, Nikki for Freedom. What's up? My favorites. And Zowie. I'm not sure if we met before, but welcome. Welcome to the crew. Everyone here is great. Van Cruz, Rana, thank you. So does anyone have any questions? Or we could, again, just go through the briefing, or maybe if anyone has any recommendations about what to discuss, again, I like to go live when I have a chance and no one else is live. And let me just check to see that no one else is live. We could watch some other videos. Um, I know that Artie is going live in 45 minutes, and so I'm going to make sure to be off by then. I think I actually have to go. But yeah, no one else is live. So, who wants to give a recommendation of what to do? Is DP going to be off? I want to know if DP is going to be. I mean, DP. Oh, death penalty. I was gonna say I know one abbreviation, but I don't think that's what you're talking. No, I that's what the defense is trying, and I think they're presenting a good argument, but it's not going to work. They're doing their best. I don't think it's going to work. It's not. I mean, you never know, but I think it's highly unlikely. I think the only thing that they're going to succeed on, and if I get this right, I hope everyone gives me credit because I'm putting stakes on it. I think they're going to get count 6 dropped. Yeah, no, I figured out the death penalty. I don't think it was the other type of DP. And so I think they're going to get count 6 off, and I think they should. I don't think that it should be considered witness tampering when you tell somebody to be silent, to follow your constitutional rights, be silent, and call a lawyer. I don't think that's witness tampering. I think he would have to go beyond that, and so I think that that's going to be dropped. Which, as I mentioned yesterday, does it really do anything to the case? No. No, doesn't. It does. I mean, it doesn't do anything to the sentencing that he's facing. But I mean, it's better than nothing. One less thing that the defense has to worry about. Now they can focus more on other lesser offenses, other grounds for appeals, other things. So congratulations for the defense. I think that the prosecution might have even knew that they were kind of overcharging with that one, overcharge so that when they have to fight more, meet somewhere closer to the middle. So that's my opinion about it. What about the sentencing enhancement? And I kind of want to check on this because one second. You have sentencing enhancement, a few sentencing enhancements for the different charges. So one of the sentencing enhancements for the murder, the aggravated murder, and you would ask, why would you need a sentencing enhancement if it's already a death penalty? Well, the sentencing enhancement is separate from the death penalty, what makes it aggravated murder, the aggravating circumstance. So let's just say, hypothetically, the defense is successful and gets the aggravating circumstance out. If there's still a sentencing enhancement, then that will add, I don't know, that Utah's got its very specific statutes, but it will add more years to the sentence that's given if it's not the death penalty. So, for example, let's say it's 25 years for murder, homicide. The sentencing enhancement might make it 5 years more, right? And so the sentencing enhancement here for the murder is that it was politically motivated. Now that I don't think is going to fly at all because it's just common sense that this was politically motivated. I don't think that they spent a whole lot of time in the brief on the political motivation. I think they probably see that as, they should see that as a really big losing cause. It's just obviously politically motivated. But the other sentencing enhancement, and I am gonna use ChatGPT just on this because I do not know the sentencing enhancements, which charges they count for. Um, there's the sentencing enhancement for the crime, the main crime, the homicide, the aggravated murder, taking place in the presence of a child or someone under the age of 14. Okay, so 1 second. So as I already said, count one, you have the aggravated murder. There's a separate capital aggravating circumstance. We got into that. That's the knowingly creating a great risk of death to someone other than Charlie Kirk or the defendant. We discussed that a lot yesterday. Separately, as I just mentioned, there's also a victim targeting penalty enhancement that Robinson intentionally selected Charlie Kirk for political motivations. Again, because it's already a capital felony, the victim targeting enhancement is not going to make a big difference. But if the capital aggravating circumstance, if somehow unlikely, but if the defense does succeed in throwing that out, you also have this victim targeting enhancement. Okay. Now, 1 second. Okay, so this is where ChatGPT comes in handy because I didn't fully realize this. So you have count two, which is the felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury. Okay. That count, they're also having the victim targeting enhancement. So in addition to the aggravated murder, there's this felony discharge of a firearm, which is a separate charge. And on that one, on both of them, they're having the victim targeting enhancement, saying that Robinson chose the victim, Charlie Kirk, out of political motivation. Okay. And again, I think the defense argued a little bit against those targeting enhancements in their brief. I don't think that they're going to go anywhere. Not also because it's unclear. There's a debate, just legally speaking, not specific to this case, but just legally speaking, whether or not these enhancements even have to be shown at the preliminary hearing stage. So that's a separate question altogether. Now, here's where it gets a little bit more confusing. Count 7 is a violent offense in the presence of a child. Okay. So that's just a count. That's count 7. Now hold on 1 second. Count 7 requires as its element not just that there is a child present, and that if that was all that was required, the prosecution met their burden when they just showed that there was a child there. But it does require that Tyler Robinson knows. Now again, it doesn't have to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, but it does need there has to be some element shown, some evidence shown to support the probable cause standard. And the defense is arguing that the prosecution didn't bother with that. And because they didn't bother with that, that shouldn't be bound over. So that's why count 7. Now with count 7, I give it a little bit of a chance that they'll succeed on. Because I don't really recall very well that the prosecution did bother trying to show any evidence that Tyler Robinson knew. However, I think that that's an inference can easily be made that he was there, he walked around the area. We know that children were there, that was shown. And so I don't think that's going to be likely to succeed, but it was worth a shot. I think the defense was right to bring it up. Now, I thought there was a separate and I'm double checking this because I thought there was a separate enhancement also on the other counts, not just the count 7, but other counts that had to do with the presence of a child. And we're getting into the weeds here. None of this is really that significant to the case. Um, and I am right. There is a separate aggravating circumstance. Or sorry, not well. They call it aggravating factor. So this is. Sorry, 1 second. So this is sentencing. They call it aggravating factor, which sounds like aggravating circumstance, right? It's another sentencing enhancement for counts 1 and 2 that it was in the presence of a child. So that is also being attacked by the defense. Hi, Tanya spilled 0214. Please subscribe and share. Hi, Mackenzie. Nice. Yeah. Tanash, Jay Witt, Artie, Paramount, Continue Freedom, all the best. I was with Continue Freedom on Paramount Tacticals yesterday. That was fun. So, anyways, my main thing is that I wanted to just kind of clear the air. The defense is not admitting that Tyler Robinson is guilty, but they are saying that the evidence. They are implying that the evidence is so strong that they're not going to bother at this stage going after it. They're going to attack. They're going to go where they have a chance, and where they see them having a chance is the aggravating circumstance, some of the lesser offenses, some of the sentencing enhancement. And again, after I know I'm being repetitive here, but I think they will get count 6 dropped. And as for, I don't think the sentencing enhancements are going to be, because again, I don't think that it needs to be shown at this stage. So I don't think that's going to be successful. As for count 7, I'm going to give it a little bit of a chance. We'll see. But if I had to bet my money, I'll say count 7 is not going to be dropped. How was my daughter's soccer practice? Yeah, it was great. She's it actually cooled down because it was like 1,000 degrees yesterday. So thankfully it cooled down enough. It was her first time doing soccer practice in a while, so she's not Ronaldo or anything, but she's great. Thank you, Juju B. Is there anyone that has any questions? I saw some people asking me a few questions on LLC, but I was kind of in and out working, and I had it on mute, so I didn't answer. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you. Well, you guys, no questions. Let's just go through some X. Go through a little X action. I think X uses a lot of memory. memory, a lot of like RAM memory. What is it? Random access memory. And so I'm hoping that it will not freeze up my crappy ass computer, but who knows? Let's give it a try. Let's see what's going on with X. This one, like trash, and this one. Okay, let's see what's going on with X, shall we? You guys get to see what I see when I go on X. And again, I'm not gonna step on Artie's live. So Jackie Che, agent number 13. So jealous. I'm an honorary member of the illustrious 92, but I wasn't part of the original one. I think that the dark tetrad, which is talking about. Okay, well, let's just read. With the darkness we've seen in the podcast conspiracy world lately, I thought a refresher on the dark triad and dark tetrad would be helpful. What are they? The dark triad is a set of co-occurring personality traits. One second, let me make sure that you guys are seeing. Okay. That can be identified in many manipulative, callous, or cruel individuals. Who do we know that's manipulative, callous, and cruel? Who does that remind us of? A certain cockroach. These are separate but overlapping constructs. High scores on these traits imply a propensity for criminality, antisocial behavior, and interpersonal conflict. A fourth trait was proposed, sadism, which produces additional unprovoked aggression, completing the dark tetrad. Definitions: Machiavellianism, strategic manipulation, emotional coldness, a deep focus on self-interest, and the belief that the end justifies the means. Psychopathy, profound lack of empathy, shallow emotional responses, interpersonal manipulation, and persistent antisocial behavior. Narcissism, grandiose sense of self-importance, lack of empathy, and an excessive need for admiration. Sadism, gratification from the physical pain or humiliation of another person. Application. It's helpful simply to be able to identify these patterns in life and online. When encountering a dark tetrad individual, remember that your emotional and painful response is the goal. Don't expect to win the argument with displays of frustration or vulnerability. Your distress is the lifeblood of your attacker. Now, it's hard for people that have not encountered socio or psychopaths to really accept the idea that there are these people out there that like have no emotional internal conscience. It seems like maybe this is kind of an exaggeration to describe certain behaviors that we all engage in bad behaviors, right? We've all done things that we regret. And so, at least with me, I feel like when I was younger, when I was younger, I didn't really know about it, but it was just not. Hi, Angie Warren and Van Cruz. Thank you for stopping by. Um, but really, you have to really suffer, or not suffer, but like be affected, be impacted by somebody that's like a sociopath or psychopath to really accept that there are these people out there. And once you are and you accept it, then you could start noticing it in other people. Now, you really have to be a doctor or psychologist or psychiatrist to diagnose somebody, you know, ethic like, and really you have to actually know them pretty well. You know, a psychiatrist cannot just diagnose someone as having something, at least not formally diagnosed, just based on watching them. But that doesn't mean that you know, in practice, like you can't pick up on things, right? So yeah, yeah. I mean, is Candace a dark tetrad? She's she's definitely displayed a lot of these qualities. I'm trying to think of like, is there anything from it that she hasn't displayed? Um, I'm trying to find some one of these qualities that we can say Candace hasn't really displayed yet. No, no, I mean she's really displayed all of it, and I feel like I see it in her. And again, you know, you shouldn't go off your gut feeling for the most part. In when you're dealing with logic and reason, your gut is often wrong. So, you know, that's my. But when you see her smile when she's watching Erica Kirk, it seems like that's not human. That's not normal, right? Has anyone seen Candace Owens display anything that would indicate that she's not a sociopath? That's a serious question. Like, have you ever seen an interview of hers or podcast of hers or something where she says something that makes you think, you know what, that that's kind of more human. That's genuinely like emotional or something. I'm curious because I haven't seen that. And by the way, I don't say this just because I dislike her. There are plenty of people I dislike as people and I dislike their opinions, but I wouldn't say I think that they're a sociopath just because I dislike them, you know? Yeah, Angie, but I mean, you cannot legally diagnose someone unless you're a psychiatrist. But we're just chatting here. I want to know what you guys think if she's ever displayed any sort of evidence that she's not a psychopath. Why is weird? Are you guys still seeing the Yeah, she gets off on hurting people, and she's obviously narcissistic. I mean, yeah, yeah, I know you. I'm not persuading any of my usual live chat people here. I think that we're all in agreement, but I'm just curious. Yeah, she's always shown this behavior. Yeah, okay, okay. Well, are you guys seeing my X feed? Because that's kind of it's weird how on my OBS it shows my X feed. I mean, it shows my X feed, but then on the YouTube it still shows the thing. Let me see if I exit out. Unless it's just really slow and it's still from like 10 minutes ago. It might just be that it's really slow. Okay. Uh, Let's see what else we got on X. Let's see anything else interesting. Yeah, this I think is just, Tucker Carlson. I don't know if he's like what I call a sociopath necessarily. He's just bizarre. He's got he's crazy. He's got a weird personality. I'm sorry, it's just like it's not normal. And even Nick Fuentes is like calling him out. And by the way, I love this infighting amongst the Jew haters. Between Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson, Stu Peters, Candace Owens. Who else is part of all of this? Thank you, Texas. Yeah, I'm going to go off before Artie on Paramount Tactical. If he starts early or something, let me know. But I didn't see anyone going live, so I'm like, you know what? I have some time. Angie followed me. Yay. A temporary label to my account. What? Manipulation. By the way, if you guys want to know, I don't know what is going on here. This is okay. Weird behavior. I don't know what's going on with my live. Can you guys see my X? I guess the live just goes kind of slow. So anyways, I just want to remind everybody why I go after Candace so hard.
Against Erica Kirk. I've seen enough. Erica Kirk should be dragged into a police precinct. The assassination of Charlie Kirk was something akin to a regicide, right? The assassination of a king to install a new ruler who the king would have never approved of. Turning Point USA for Erica Kirk, and what I think is fair to refer to as their federal accomplices. Anyways, back at headquarters, I am told it's business as usual, and it's kind of giving me LBJ when he gets sworn in that famous picture. Unfortunately, sworn in. Unfortunately, of course, he's sad in this photo. Gosh, he's obviously not wanting to be the president of the United States. JFK was shot and killed, and now LBJ has to step up, unfortunately. But I gotta be honest, I wasn't there. I don't think LBJ was actually that upset. JFK, right? Knowing, as I do, and as Charlie did believe that LBJ was involved, which then implicates the feds, because she loved Charlie. She loved him like Lyndon Baines Johnson loved JFK. No time to grieve. She needed to be sworn in as the new leader before his body was even cold. She's a grieving widow. And she's forced to assume his role and reverse everything that he did, like LBJ did after JFK's death. Malevolence. I continue to underscore what Elizabeth Lane, the reporter, stated in her post, that in her opinion, Erica Kirk exhibits the attributes of a psychopath. That Erica Kirk might be a psychopath. Erica Kirk is a psychopath. A psychopath is the best answer that I can come up with. My assessment that she's a psychopath. Erica Kirk, and to continue to pretend that anything she has done is normal, to pretend and act like she is a grieving widow when she is anything but. She plots behind the scenes. She sends people to fall on the sword for her. She's more akin to Cersei Lannister. This woman was not actually a grieving widow. She wasn't a grieving widow. Matt, actually, one could argue that she may have even been a psychopath for doing this, being able to do this after she killed her husband. Do you know how they built that case?
She killed
People
her
who
husband.
actually cared about Eric and offered various
She killed her
details,
husband.
and
That's defamation.
to the point that, well, none of these points in various details about how Erica
please
is
sue
grieving
her.
would ever
Please.
survive in the court of
Sue
law.
her
Ironically,
into
in this case against
bankruptcy
Corey Richins,
and donate
for which
that
she was
money
ultimately
to
found
all of the
guilty,
people
the
that
prosecutors
Candace Owens
played the
has attacked.
911 call and said explicitly that it didn't sound like a grieving widow.
The first minute is not the sound of a wife becoming a widow. To echo her friend Chelsea Barney, the first minute is the sound of a wife becoming a black widow.
She's not grieving right. She sounds like she's become a black widow, not a widow. And to refuse some foregone conclusion that spouses simply would never have a hand in the murder of one another, which actually flies in the face of reality. Something is off. People who were willing to stand up and do what you guys describe as immoral or evil and demanding a further investigation when nothing makes sense. And so what I would say is, here is what I know. Grieving widows do not lie about threats that their husbands were facing the night before their death. They don't lie about that stuff. Grieving widows do not make up quotations that the surgeon never said about a Superman neck to manage PR, least of all on the day that they're burying their husbands. That right there is why it is impossible for me to think that Erica Kirk is not complicit somehow. That is her being coached and sent to delude the public into believing that there was more and it wasn't so clear-cut when she knew that it wasn't. Evil. That's evil. Hunter showed more emotion in an hour and a half talking about crack than Erica has in 8 months. Yeah, I saw a lot of comments like that. That it's crazy that you're seeing more emotion and character out of Hunter Biden than you are seeing from the, the wife of the Black Widow, the CEO. I think Erica is calculated, and I want to say to JD Vance, you better wake up fast, okay? That's a Black Widow, my friend. She's not grieving right. She sounds like she's become a Black Widow, not a widow. The Black Widow. That's a Black Widow, my friend. You will get bit.
Projection much? Projection much? And can I just say also here, yeah, Erica, honestly, I feel like Erica has a responsibility to sue her. I mean, look, she lives her own life, and I respect that she might not want to do it, but those of us who, want to see justice and support her, it's kind of like, I don't know. I don't want to say we're owed it, but you know what I mean. Like, do it. But I think she probably will. Waiting for the Tyler Robinson verdict. Because until she gets the verdict, because she also has to prove that what Candace is saying is false. Now, it should be easy for her to prove it, right? But if you get a verdict, then you just submit that to the court as proof that it's false. So, yeah, I think she's waiting for the trial. But she already has grounds for other reasons to sue her, calling psychopath and stuff like that. Now, we should do a class action. Yeah, well, we all have to show damages. We can't just sue on other people's behalf. We wouldn't have standing. Yeah, the court of law is really the only place that Candace can be made to suffer. Oh, what I wanted to say is, are you guys as disgusted as me when it comes to Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson? I mean, Tucker Carlson, obviously, for everything he does. But when it comes to Megyn Kelly saying that she's friends with Erica Kirk, but refusing to call out Candace, what cowardice? What cowardice? I don't care if she's friends with Candace. If my friend was doing something like this, tormenting another friend of mine, You call it out. You call it out by name. Use your platform. Megyn Kelly, you cowardly, spineless jellyfish, goes along with everything. You are you deserve to be dragged down by Candace. You are being dragged down by Candace, and you deserve it. As for Tucker, Tucker said recently that he called Candace Owens in the morning and then called Erica Kirk in the afternoon. That he maintains friendships with both, or maybe it was the other way around, but that he called them both. You know, Megan's how can you do that? How can you claim to be Erica Kirk's friend and be Candace's friend? You can't. Not at this point. If this was a one-off instance, then maybe there's some reconciliation possible. But this has been 11 months of this. Yeah, Megyn Kelly's she's just a coward. I don't think she's like evil in the same way as Tucker or Candace, but she's just a coward. Just cowardly. And what was sick about it is that Ben Shapiro said that Candace is basically doing what she's doing. And Megyn Kelly gave Ben Shapiro shit for it. And so she's jumping on the woke right anti-Jew bandwagon too. I'm not saying she's anti-Semitic, but she is more than happy to ride those coattails. And I am glad that she's being dragged down with Candace. And I think Tucker right now is dragging himself down. Even his Nazi followers are turning on him for the Hunter Biden interview. And it seems like it's kind of inevitable when you start going down these rabbit holes and you're not interested in truth, you're just interested in your hatred and your grievances. That's what it's going to get the best of you. It always does. Yeah. Yeah, she's definitely a coward. And Tucker's meat suit is blazing. He's so great. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the silver lining is all of these people, they don't learn. You know what I mean? If they learned, then there would be a chance that they'll change and then get away with everything that they've done. But since they don't learn, it's going to get the better of them. It always does. So, yeah. But I know that Artie's going live in 5 minutes. Yeah, that's a good point, Angie. Tucker rode the wave of the corporate media. He rose it to prominence, and now he tries to make it sound like he's so outside the system. I mean, he used it to get to where he is. He wouldn't have any followers if it wasn't for Fox News. And now he bashes it. So anyone, I gotta go, you guys. But I will see you in the chat on Paramount Tactical in 5 minutes. Bye, everyone.